Hi, I'm NeverSink, and today I want to present you my DoomPrism Avatar Scion guide. I've been playing this character since the start of this 3.0 league, and I've been having a total blast. The character is super powerful, super fun, very fast. It's amazing at clearing AoE and single target. I've been able to run any maps, reflect map included, kill all guardians, kill all tier 15 bosses, take down Shaper, farm Uber Exile. In short, this character is amazing. Well, if I do say so myself. So I wanna show you guys and teach you guys how you can make your own avatar, and I hope you enjoy the guide. So yes, let's jump straight into it. To understand this build, you need to understand the items it is using. We are relying on the DoomPrism unique bow. Now please note, I'm talking about the DoomPrism, not just Doomfletch. The DoomPrism is an upgraded Doomfletch. Now this bow has pretty neat attack speed and quite high critical strike chance. Oh, actually kinda average, but still it's decent. Decent critical strike chance. But its most important property is gain 110% of bow physical damage as extra damage of each element. It's quite easy to explain. If you have 100 physical damage, you also get 110 cold damage, 110 fire damage, and 110 lightning damage. At this point, you should pretty much understand how powerful it is. That means that any other source of flat physical damage, such as damage from rings, amulets, Drillneck, chance to bleed, which also grants physical damage for some reason, gloves, and so forth, apply to us like a more multiplier with 330% efficiency. This is very, very powerful. That basically explains the core of our build and the source of our damage. To gain damage, we need to increase our flat physical damage. At this point, my items are all pretty expensive because I'm farmed and improved this build a lot. So I'm going to explain you what you're looking for this build on a budget, and also explain how the endgame version looks like. So in either case, you want to use Drillneck. You want to use Drillneck because it offers unsurpassed physical damage, which grants us a lot of damage overall. It also gives us life and also gives us attack speed and some nice damage boosts. At the beginning, just grab any Drillneck. Just grab a cheap Drillneck, you can get one for a few chaos. Later on, you can try finding a Drillneck with a lot of attack speed, with a lot of physical damage, and also, if you are fairly rich, a corrupted one with an adds additional arrow mod. This increases our damage and our clear speed significantly. We are using rare gloves. If you're on a budget, don't try to find gloves with all kind of expensive stats. You should be totally fine just getting Clive and resistances on them. Besides, gloves actually don't grant this much physical damage compared to rings, so you should be okay with just getting Clive and resistances for the beginning. Later on, try to get gloves with life, resists, physical damage, and if possible also attack speed and or accuracy. Our boots are also rare. You want to have movement speed, you want to get some life, some strength, and if possible some resistances on them. That's pretty much it, there's not much to tell. If you are on a budget, try getting cheaper ones with less movement speed and less resist. If you have a lot of currency, try getting better boots. Now, the best possible enchantment here is the 10% damage penetration enchantment. That's something you should definitely get in the late game. It's something I still haven't acquired, and it would grant me a huge damage boost. So yeah, that's pretty much the best thing you can use in this slot. We're looking for life, stats, resistances, and if possible damage boosts on our belt. If you're on a budget, you can use Meganod's Girdle. It's a very good belt, it grants you the stats you need, it grants you a lot of physical damage, which is great. It grants you some resistances, the life flask recovery rate is also nice in the beginning of the game, so you should be totally happy by using and buying it for 1 chaos. Later on, you want a belt that grants you stats, that grants you a lot of resists, and later on you want to also have a lot of life on your belt. So you can still use Meganod's Girdle in the endgame, but once you get good rings like steel rings, the impact of the flat physical damage on the Meganod's Girdle won't be quite as high, and I recommend switching from it to a good rare belt. Our rings and amulets are very important for us. The flat physical damage rings, especially steel rings, can provide is amazing, and we can also get a lot of other aggressive stats on our amulet. So try to get those. Of course, your primary concern should still be life and resistances, so if you're still on a budget, try getting ones that basically cover your resists and also give you just physical damage. Once you're richer, I recommend you to upgrade to rings and amulets that also are either steel rings or amulets with a lot of other aggressive bonuses. For instance, this amulet has a lot of flat physical damage, crit multiplier and accuracy, which grants me, I think it grants me like a 20% more multiplier. So it's pretty powerful. Actually, there's also some other choices. A pretty good choice is a Blood Grip amulet. Blood Grip provides you a lot of life, a lot of flat physical damage, quite a lot of recovery if you are still using Flasks, which is something you will be doing in the beginning of the game. Well, beginning of the game, I use them until like level 90. And the moving while bleeding doesn't cost you extra damage is also quite neat. Also, I've designed my gear in a way that I'm actually not resistance or stat starved if I unequip my amulet, so I can swap to Viscous Collar in lower maps. For instance, when I'm running tier 11, tier 12, tier 13 maps, or even tier 14 maps, I'm usually using Viscous Collar instead of my damage amulet. This allows me to do some sort of magic finding, get some more currency drop, and basically fund my equipment. Now, before I actually talk about my endgame armor and helmet, I want to talk about the budget versions. On a budget, you want to use a rare helmet or something like Staconia's Pelt, I think. Now, I've been actually using this exact helmet until I acquired my Tempest Binding, and you generally want to look for a lot of life, maybe evasion, resistances, and accuracy. That's actually pretty much it. You should be totally happy with this helmet, and it actually works very well. There's a lot of good options for body armors. There's Belly of the Beast, there's the new Council body armor, which is amazing. You can also get something like the Cosprey armor. So there's a lot of armor choices. You can basically pick what you like. You can also just grab a 5 or 6 link evasion armor from the market. That's something I did. 6 link evasion armor costed like 80 or 90 chaos. It's a lot, but it's not too much. So yeah, that is my recommendation for a budget armor. Alright, now the endgame version, and let's hope this time I actually managed to tell it correctly, because I'm gonna show you my recording folder. It took me quite a while to record a proper version. Right, so let's try it again. Once you're rich enough and farm up a lot of currency, in my opinion, the best way to equip this character is running Calm's Heart and Tempest Binding. Now, you know Calm's Heart likely. Calm's Heart is a fairly expensive unique that grants you a lot of life, but does not have any sockets or other mentioned worthy stats. Well, it has fire damage. And I forgot the quality. Why doesn't it have quality? Right. Let's improve the guide. Okay, so Calm's Heart is our armor of choice. And the armor of choice is apparently also shaking. Anyway, so why can we use Calm's Heart? Archers traditionally need 2 attacks, unless they're using Tornado Shot. We are running Lightning Arrow, so we still need a single target attack in the form of a barrage attack. But we actually can use Tempest Binding. Tempest Binding is a new helmet and it's amazing. Calm's Heart only works well if you have Tempest Binding. So the goal is to first purchase Tempest Binding, then Calm's Heart. I'm gonna repeat it so people don't buy Calm's Heart and then get disappointed because the clear speed goes down. First get a Tempest Binding, then a Calm's Heart, not vice versa. Tempest Binding is amazing. So what does it do? It grants us level 18 Ice Bite and level 18 Innovate. That basically gives us a lot of lightning and cold damage, and also frenzy charge generation and onslaught, which we actually don't need, and also lightning damage if we kill something with our lightning arrow, buffing our barrage. It's not exactly a 6-link since we wouldn't be running exact those gems, but it's more than powerful enough to make a lightning arrow very, very strong. So it's kind of like a 5.5 link. Okay, so it's already quite good because it gives us a 5.5 link. But on top of that, it also provides us with a lot of life and elemental resistances and evasion. So now we have a 5.5 link and a defensive bonuses. But that's not enough. The Tempest Binding also provides us with a Harbinger of Storms. Now we can summon him. He is invulnerable and is super annoying because he'll try to shock you all the time. The shock actually doesn't do anything, but if the enemy is nearby, the shock will chain off you and it will shock them for 20% bonus damage and 10% chill. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. This helmet actually gives us a 20% more multiplier versus bosses, an ability to run elemental focus instead of something so we wouldn't lose our shock, a lot of evasion, well, quite a bit of evasion, a lot of life, and also elemental resistances, and on top of that a 5.5 link. So to sum this up, this helmet is expensive but absolutely amazing. If you have the currency to acquire it and your other items are pretty good, get it by all means. This helmet is just crazy amazing and is gonna likely rise in price. And before you think no, I did not buy those helmets, no, I'm being not sponsored by the Harbingers to promote it, it's just so freaking good. So I'm gonna kill the Harbinger real quick so he stops shocking and making noise. There we go. Right, now let's talk about our gems. Basically we have an AoE attack, it's lightning arrow, and we have a single target attack, it's barrage. Now in barrage you wanna use, and this is an important part, you wanna use chance to bleed. Chance to bleed provides us with 48 to 71 flat physical damage. This is kind of funny because it's actually more than our DoomPrism. Admittedly, this is a level 21 chance to bleed. The quality doesn't matter, just try to get a high level chance to bleed. So if you're on a 5 link, you basically want to run this combination. Barrage, great multiple projectiles, chance to bleed, elemental damage with attacks, and elemental focus. If you're on a 4 link, just remove the elemental focus. This setup provides us with so much damage that we can take down even the hardest bosses very quickly. With a combination of Tempest Binding, we still keep our shock and our chill. Also, great multiple projectiles is actually better until you get 2 passive projectiles. So by passive I don't mean Dying Sun, because Dying Sun won't be up all the time. I recommend you to only switch out great multiple projectiles once you get the Tempest Binding or whatever helm you're using plus 2 barrage enchantment. Right now I only have 1 additional arrow, and I recommend using GMP if you only have 1 or 0 additional arrows. Our lightning arrow is linked to greater multiple projectiles, elemental damage with attacks, and chance to bleed. On a 5 link and without a Tempest Binding, you can also link those gems to physical projectile attack damage, slower projectiles, chain, or faster attacks depending on what you like. If you have a Tempest Binding, I recommend you stick to those slots. Now depending upon if you have 6 links, 5 links or 4 links, or if you're using Calm's Hut or not, you'll be left with 2 more free items or 3 to 3.5 free items worth of sockets. So you will have to fill those items with gems you like and utility gems. Now I'm gonna warn you guys here, this is kinda subject to personal preference. So when it comes to auras and heralds, I believe the best combination is Herald of Ice, Herald of Lightning, Thunder, Link to Curse and Hit, and Link to Assassin's Mark. On my other free item, I'm running Arctic Armor as our final mana reservation purpose, because Hatred is actually pretty big for us because we convert so much damage. And I also link the Arctic Armor, which actually doesn't matter. I also have Blink Arrow, Summon Ice Golem, and Culling Strike here. The Cunning Strike is actually pretty useful because you can use your Blink Arrow and Golems to cow big bosses such as Shaper and tier 15, tier 16 bosses. And that pretty much covers our item section. If you have more free sockets, you can use things like faster attacks with your Blink Arrow. You can run 2 different Golems because you're an Elementalist. Well, there's a lot of different choices. You can even put something like a Decoy Totem, you can use Enduring Cry, you can get an Immortal Core setup. Sadly, with Kaom's Heart we don't have the luxury, so we have to limit ourselves to those attacks. So let's now talk about our flasks. Until recently I've been running this setup. Bubbling Divine Flask of Warding, Chemist's Stibnite Flask of Staunching, Perpetual Diamond Flask of Heat, and a Serious Promise, and a Quicksilver Flask. Now you can adjust the setup to whatever you like, but I believe you really need a Diamond Flask, and you want to have Anti-Freeze and Anti-Bleed on one of your flasks. So anything else can be swapped. For instance, for Labyrinths I prefer to run 2 Life Flasks because traps are annoying, and for right now I'm usually running the Wise Oak. Now if you optimize your setup more, you can also include things like Dying Sun here. But right now I'm pretty pleased with my setup. Alright, the skill tree, here we go. Now this is a Scion skill tree. We are actually playing a Scion. I know it's horrifying and a new experience since 3.0. And we are picking up Elementalist and we are also picking up Raider. So why those 2 ascendancies? Elementalist is amazing. It makes us pretty much immune to any elemental reflect. And this is great. It also grants us 6% damage penetration, which is amazing. It also grants us Conflux, which is very useful for clearing. It's kinda, you don't mention it too much until you actually start looking at it, and it's pretty nice. The additional Golem is kinda a cherry on top, but the most important thing is penetration and reflect mitigation. Also the 40 intelligence is quite nice. We combine the Elementalist with the Raider, and the Raider in turn grants us movement speed, a great way to sustain frenzy charges against bosses, and a great way to also get free onslaught. So basically we're getting the best parts of Raider and the best parts of Elementalist. On top of that, the Scion grants us additional passive points, and with the parts of the Ranger we can actually optimize our skill tree to get some things from the Scion and some things from the Raider. Now I'm not gonna cover the skill tree in full details in this video. I'm gonna provide a description to the skill tree in the link. So basically when you're leveling, go out to the right in the Scion tree. Basically you wanna go like this. And pretty much proceed the skill tree from here. Once you get the pass of Ranger skill tree, you can actually start from the Ranger and you wanna ditch this part. This is the most important part. Afterwards, it's a more or less classical Ranger skill tree. You grab a lot of life, you grab Vow Pact, more life, Ranger charges, acrobatics, a lot of crit nodes, those crit nodes, more life. We get actually Point Blank. I feel like Point Blank or Point Blank is very good. We get the leech nodes, and this is pretty much kind of the general overview. So I'm gonna pick this up in another video later on, but I want to talk about some nodes in detail. Here you want to get Linus 4. It's a very strong Jules that converts melee and weapon type modifiers into bow modifiers. So in this circle everything is converted. I highly recommend getting you this. It's well, I highly recommend you to get this. I'm not gonna get this for you. It's pretty expensive, but it's totally worth it. Because we get Soul Raker, which provides us with all the life and mana leech we need. Actually, we still kind of need more, but it provides you with a lot. It also gives us those nodes that are very powerful while providing us with claw critical strike chance and multiplier. Also, once you have a corrupted Drillneck, you want to get those nodes, Piercing Shot, because we get 50% increased damage against enemies we pierce with our shots. Also, it really makes leveling, not leveling, but mapping a lot more comfortable because lightning arrow pierces. Finally, in my, well, live game tree, I also picked up Claws of Pride. And I believe Claws of Pride is a very good node because it provides you with kinda crazy amounts of damage. I know those two nodes do not get converted, but look at this, 13.2% total DPS boost from Claws of Pride. I mean, try like beating this. Take a look at this node. This thing gives us total DPS of 10%. Claws of Pride gives us a total DPS boost of 13%. But we need to align our skill tree to make good use of Claws of Pride like this. So it's up to you if you're gonna use Claws of Pride, if you wanna do it, if you like it or not. So I believe it's totally worth it, but it's in the end up to you if you prefer the decision or not. Right, so I don't think I need to cover Vow Pact and Acrobatics. You absolutely need those nodes to play the game. Don't get Heavy Draw, it's inefficient, it's really inefficient. Now this node is great. But this is another point I want to cover. Why didn't I take King of the Hill? I mean, it's a lot of crit chance. So I didn't get it because it knocks enemies back. And if you have a lot of arrows, Barrage will constantly knock enemies away. And Point Blank provides you with 50% bonus damage, but only if you're like face to face with your enemy. If you knock him back all the time, not only will you decrease your own damage, but you will also knock him back so far that a lot of barrage projectiles are gonna miss. At this point, it's actually not a good thing. So I don't recommend picking it up. It's good for DPS, but it's not too good for DPS, and it's also kinda annoying. Also, another thing I want to talk about real quick is... Damn it, what was it? Kinda forgot it. Oh yeah, so this tree right now has 180% life from tree. If you're gonna go hardcore, I recommend you pick up the whole Scion life wheel. And you can also grab some more life. Oh, I actually grabbed it already here. And you can ditch a few nodes along the way. So for instance, you could do something like drop the attack speed nodes, or just get a few frenzy charges less. It's not the end of the world. So this way you can become very, very tanky, even tanky enough for hardcore. I mean, with my Calm Sword and with medium quality life jewelry and items, because I focus on damage mostly, I would still get 7.6k life. It's pretty decent. Right, this pretty much covers the tree. As for Jules, you generally want to get Jules that grant you physical damage with both, life everywhere, projectile damage and attack speed. Also critical strike multiply and critical strike chance are pretty decent. So a quick word about the Pantheon. I believe Soul of the Brine King is the best choice. If you dislike it, you can also go with Soul of Solaris or Lunaris. And for the minor souls, I recommend using Rarlakash to run laps. I recommend using Soul of Frislata if you are still on a budget, because your Flask will recharge is pretty neat, especially if you're running Blood Rage. And finally, Soul of Aberras is pretty good for general endgame mapping, because it provides you protection against ignites, and ignites can be quite dangerous in the endgame. So, to conclude this guide, I'd like to give you guys my top 10 tips that actually concern gearing, gameplay and just general improvements. So, first of all, don't trust your tooltip, period. Your tooltip will be lying. It will show you like you have 5k barrage tooltip DPS, while your actual DPS in passive building is over 1 million. The reason for that is that your barrage DPS only calculates it for one arrow, actually doesn't consider something like point blank, doesn't consider the fact that Doomflage adds like 330% elemental damage, and thus also doesn't consider any of your gems that affect elemental damage. So just don't trust your tooltip DPS. If you want accurate calculations, check out passive building. My second tip is you can really run all maps once you have the leech nodes. The only the only map mod you can't run is You Cannot Leech, but luckily this mod is very, very rare. Otherwise elemental reflect, physical reflect, anything, even if it has like vulnerability and minus max stress on it. My third tip is, until you get the Tempest Binding, use Blood Rage to sustain your frenzy charges. Once you have Tempest Binding, drop Blood Rage. You don't have too many sockets, and actually it's kind of annoying. I mean, if you have only one flask left, one life flask, and for some reason you don't find any mobs, you end up having low HP, it's just risky, you don't need that. So once you have Tempest Binding and your Ascendancies, you don't need Blood Rage at all. Then, and this is actually very important, when buying your Doomflash Prism, consider buying a Doomflash, a normal one, and the Ancient Doom Prophecy. The reason for that is that the Doomflash keeps its stats, but only gets upgraded with improved triple elemental damage. So you can actually pick a normal, fairly cheap, good statted Doomflash and upgrade it, and you have a very good Doomflash then, instead of buying an expensive Doomflash Prism. This can help you save a lot of Chaos Orbs. Also take note of the level of the Doomflash. If it's under level 50, you will have to 6-socket it with Vorici. My tip number 5 would be don't forget the Pantheon. Upgrade your Pantheons. It's a subtle but pretty defensive and pretty noticeable boost. Some of those upgrades are actually quite good. Also, my tip number 6, don't forget the quality on your flasks. It really gives you a lot of utility. It really makes the whole gameplay smoother because you have like 20% more boss DPS because your flasks last longer. It'll decrease your vulnerability against things like corrupted blood and so forth. My tip number 7, don't overextend. By overextend I mean, let's say you are running Doomflash, let's say you are running Doomflash with evasion chest. So you don't have Calm Sat yet, you have like 5k HP, your damage is excellent, but you likely won't be able to survive in, let's say, tier 16 maps. Don't do it unless you have a very good reason for it. Be efficient, farm like tier 11, tier 12, tier 13 maps. Don't go into tier 14, tier 15, tier 16 if you can't handle them. In general, don't go into maps you can't handle them. You want to be fast, you don't want to die and zerg the map. My tip number 8 would be, you can't play this build with a ranger class character. But if you're gonna play it with a ranger, go for Pathfinder. And actually I believe Scion is still better than Pathfinder, but if you wanna respec your ranger for Doomflash, go for Pathfinder. With this skill tree, you will have amazing amounts of leech. It's actually number 9. You can outleech even the Shaper Beam, survive double reflect, face tank guardians, but you have to learn what bosses can one-shot you and what bosses can't one-shot you. For instance, you should not try to survive the Shaper's bows because you are not stun immune, so he can't stun lock you. It's kind of dangerous. It's not likely, but it can happen, and you can't survive 2 of them in a row. In a similar fashion, for instance, you can't survive Phoenix Whirlwind if he stun locks you sometimes, so don't do it. At the same time, you can face tank Minotaur, but well, most of them you shouldn't stay when he uses his burrow attack. And you can face tank Shaper Beam. That's pretty important to know. Finally, I don't recommend running Abyssus. It looks nice, it looks like, wow, that's a lot of damage, I should be using it, but damage is really not a big deal for this build. You have a lot of damage, and once you have your endgame equipment like Tempest Binding, plus 2 Barrage, Dying Sun, the Boots enchantment, you will not need more damage. But Abyssus will eventually kill you. It's mostly for showing off your DPS, but it doesn't actually, it's not a good idea. A chance to bleed and good jewelry is totally sufficient. Also, Dying Sun and Wise Oak will be your endgame flasks, especially if you manage to optimize your resistances to be all the same. With Dying Sun it's amazing, but you probably don't want to run them at once because A, you don't have that many flask slots, and B, Dying Sun makes Wise Oak sustain kinda awkward because you Wise Oak won't be as strong if Dying Sun is not active, or vice versa. And very finally, my last tip, you can run Jaws of Agony in your off slot, socket it with traps, and if you switch to off slot through a few traps, you get some power charges. It's a fairly well-known trick, but it can really help you smooth out your damage for those fights like Uber Itzaro, Uber Atziri and Shaper. So yeah guys, I hope you enjoyed the build, I hope you enjoyed the guide, I hope you give it a try. I'll try to make some more content updates, make some more YouTube videos about it. And yes, thanks for watching. I hope to see you next time, and goodbye.